Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about the poetry of Thomas Carew, whom I'm reading out of the Cavalier Poets, an anthology from Dover Thrift Editions. Now, his name is pronounced Thomas Carew, even though it's spelled Carew. So that's just a fun little tidbit you can take to cocktail parties and impress people with. So Carew was obviously one of the Cavalier poets, one of this sort of larger group of people who really gathered in the court of Charles I of England. And to a certain extent, Carew's poetry reflects the sort of general themes that they were interested in: loyalty to the king, love and desire, religious conviction, a very sort of high church Anglican religious tradition, etc., etc. But of the Cavalier poets that I've read, Carew is probably the one whose work least appeals to me, in part because he seems to be the most consistently bitter and distrustful of women. So that's, at least based on the selections in this anthology, there's sort of two big themes in Carew's poetry. One is that he writes a lot of elegies, or epitaphs. His most famous is probably an elegy upon the death of the Dean of St. Paul's, Dr. John Donne, which I'm not going to read to you because it's quite long and I don't really like it that much, but it is quite well known. I will read you two of his epitaphs, though, which are shorter. The inscription on the tomb of Lady Mary Wentworth, Maria Whitworth, comitus Cleveland, filia premortem pira, prima Virginium animam exultit, anno Domini 1632, et sue 18. I don't speak Latin, so I may have gotten that wrong. I apologize. And here the precious dust is laid, whose purely tempered clay was made so fine that it the guest betrayed. Else the soul grew so fast within, it broke the outward shell of sin, and so was hatched a cherubim. In height it soared to God above, in depth it did not knowledge move, it did to knowledge move, and spread in breadth to general love. Before a pious duty shined to parents courteous behind, on either side an equal mind, good to the poor, to kindred dear, to servants kind, to friendship clear, to nothing but herself severe. So though a virgin, yet a bride, to every grace she justified a chaste polygamy, and died. Learn from hence, reader, what small trust we owe this world, where virtue must, frail as our flesh, crumble to dust. And the other one that I'm going to read you is Epitaph on the Lady Mary Villers. The Lady Mary Villers lies under this stone with weeping eyes, the parents that first gave her birth, and their sad friends laid her in earth. If any to them, reader, were known to thee, shed a tear, or if thyself possess a gem as dear to thee as this to them, though a stranger to this place, bewail in theirs thine own hard case, for thou, perhaps, at thy return, mayst find thy darling in an urn. So, I mean, these are fine, right? I mean, they're epitaphs. They're tomb poems that perhaps get carved on tombs, perhaps are just sort of associated with the death of this person. And that's a very, very ancient tradition, right? The epitaph or the eulogy poem, that's a very, very old tradition, goes back probably as long as writing does. And yeah, they're fine. They're about memorializing the person, playing up their good characteristics, pointing to things about them that are admirable, etc., etc. And that's okay. I don't really have a problem with that. What I have a problem with Carey's poetry is more the love poems, because his love poems tend to have a bit of an incel energy, in my view. So some of them are... So there is, across the board with the Cavaliers, this sort of tendency towards free love. While also having a tendency to... men can love freely, women should maintain fidelity to their men. This, of course, is unshocking, but the Cavaliers were probably more sort of open and accepting of women pursuing multiple partners in courtly love than many other of their contemporaries were. That's not to say that they were fans of it, but they were probably more on board with it because there is sort of a logical requirement that if I want to sleep with a lot of the ladies at court, that means a lot of the ladies at court need to be willing to cheat on their husbands with me. So, again, they weren't thrilled with this, probably, but I think they were more sort of willing to accept it as a reality. Carey, not so much. He is very struck by sort of women's duplicity in men's sexual desires for them, etc., etc. And he has this very strong tendency to blame women for men's sexual attitudes and desires. So one comparatively mild, I feel, one comparatively mild one is the poem Good Counsel to a Young Maid. Gaze not on thy beauty's pride, tender maid, in the false tide that from lovers' eyes doth slide. Let thy faithful crystal show how thy colours come and go. Beauty takes a foil from woe. Love that in those smooth streams lies, under pity's fair disguise, will thy melting heart surprise. Nets of passion's finest thread, snaring poems will be spread, all to catch thy maidenhead. Then beware for those that cure love's disease, find themselves endure for reward a calenture. Oh, not word, sorry. Rather let the lover pine, then his pale cheek should assign a perpetual blush to thine. So, I mean, what we have going on here is basically the advice, don't lead men on. If you do, and a man ruins you, that will be your fault. You, as a maid, need to resist the men's advances. So that's a relatively mild one, as far as because it does really sort of foreground men will try to ruin you, alongside this element of you should not let yourself be ruined. So there's a little complexity here. But some of the other poems, not all of his poems are quite as incel-y as the next two that I'm going to read to you, but the next two definitely have that sense of I hate women for not giving me what I want, and I refuse to acknowledge that there may be something about me that puts women off. So this is Song to My Inconstant Mistress. And right from that title, you should have a decent sense of the whole incel vibe. Song to My Inconstant Mistress. When thou, poor excommunicate, from all the joys of love shalt see the full reward and glorious fate, which my strong faith shall purchase me, then curse thine own inconstancy. A fairer hand than thine shall cure that heart which thy false oaths did wound, and to my soul a soul more pure than thine shall by love's hand be bound, and both with equal glory crowned. Then shalt thou weep, entreat, complain to love as I did once to thee, when all thy tears shall be in vain, as mine were then, for thou shalt be damned for thy false apostasy. Basically, this poem is saying, yeah, I'm glad you dumped me because I'm going to go find somebody else who's even better than you, and then you'll be sad because I'll be with somebody awesome and you won't be with me. Shut the fuck up, guy. What a fucking teenage bullshit poem to write. And, I mean, again, I'm saying this because I don't really like Harry. I don't like this vibe. I don't like this energy. But it is very just like, it's very juvenile, right? This sort of like, I'm going to run away from home and then you'll all be sad that you were mean to me. Like what a child does when their parents fucking force them to eat broccoli or go to bed early or some bullshit like this. That's Carrie's attitude toward this relationship. Is like, well, fine. It's fine that you dumped me because I'm just going to go find somebody better. And don't even ask because she's from Canada and you wouldn't know her. Yeah, I don't like it. That's the short version. I don't like it. I don't like Carrie and this whole fucking bullshit that he's doing. It's very patriarchal and very emotionally manipulative, and I'm against those things as a rule. #woke. The other one that I really get this sort of incel energy from is ingrateful beauty threatened. No, Celia, since thou art so proud, 'twas I that gave thee thy renown. Thou hadst in the forgotten crowd of common beauties lived unknown, had not my verse exhaled thy name, and with it imped the wings of fame. That killing power is none of thine, I gave it to thy voice and eyes. Thy sweets, thy graces all are mine, thou art my star, shin'st in my skies. Then dart not from thy borrowed sphere, lightning on him that fixed thee there. Tempt me with such affrights no more, lest what I made I uncreate. Let fools thy mystic forms adore, I'll know thee in thy mortal state. Wise poets that wrapped truth in tales knew her themselves through all her veils. I mean, this is in the vein of other types of poems, where it's like, I as the poet am immortalizing the beloved, but what Carrie is doing here that's very different than those typically is he's saying, don't dump me, don't break my heart, don't abandon me, don't be cruel to me, whatever bullshit, because you're just a nobody and a nothing and nobody else finds you hot. Everybody just thinks you are because I wrote poems about how beautiful you are. And if I start writing poems about how you suck, then everybody's going to believe that. And again, it's this very like juvenile bullshit, right? It's like, nobody cares about you. I made you what you are. It's fucking textbook emotional abuse and manipulation, right? This is a standard abuser type technique. No one but me could love you. That is fucking standard abuse. Again, it's not, there's nothing more to it than that. It is emotional abuse. You are not attractive, you are not clever, you are not whatever. I made you those things by writing poetry about you, and I can unmake those characteristics of you. I am in control of you. And so you must do what I demand of you. Fuck that guy.